created to have some fun together, sharing and singing. So, join and enjoy.
Our love for opera brings us together. Thanks for being with us in this trip.
Chocho-san is one of the favorite roles for any soprano, and of course, it is one of the favorite roles for the public. Madama Butterfly, Chocho-san is her actual name in the opera. Is a character that is portrayed by a very young woman. I'm not. I wouldn't dare to say she's a minor because it really depends on the country. But she's barely 15 years old in the opera, so meaning she's very young. By that time, the man that marries her, who happens to be an American, because Chocho-san or Madama Butterfly is Japanese, happens to be an American, and since he has a good rank with the Navy of the U.S., one tends to believe that he should be in his 30s at least, which means he could be twice the double of the age of Madama Butterfly, of Chocho-san. And if you know the plot, if not, that we can summarize it very, very quickly. This young girl, 15 years barely, Chocho-san, is picked by Pinkerton to marry her. But to marry an American means that she has to give the back to the traditions and the religion that she follows. Of course, that is not well received. She's at some point very enthusiastic of marrying a man, an American, and to her eyes, maybe to have the opportunity of being something that she would never be if she was to stay in Japan and to marry another Japanese guy. That is not the case. So, in quotes, she has the opportunity, so-called. She happens to marry him, as I was saying, just because he picked her. And it turns out that during the ceremony, during the marriage, the uncle of hers arrives along with her family and a group of people in the town to tell her that she shouldn't have given back to her religion and to her people. And in return, they will also lose any respect, or they don't want to be in contact anymore with Chocho-san. Of course, it hurts her because if you think about it, maybe when she accepted, it is not like she had an option, but at the end she's marrying the American. When she chooses to accept to marry the American, she is so irreflective, if you allow me the expression, because she thinks it's only a matter of getting married. However, getting married is not the only thing that is going to happen. Getting married means that she can no longer live under the values and can no longer live in the society that has seen her grow. In return, she will not be accepted any longer, which means that she will be sort of a foreigner or a non-accepted woman inside her group. Of course, she never reflected on that when she accepted or when she proceeded with the marriage with the American, but now maybe it is too late. Then there comes a duet that some people call the duet of love between Chocho-san, Butterfly, and Pinkerton, the American that she has just married. But the truth is that it is not a duet of love because Pinkerton really doesn't love her. He just wants to have a Japanese wife just because, to be alone and to have someone by your side, well, that's cool, right? So since that's cool, that's what he chooses to do. But it doesn't mean that he loves her. So, in fact, he is just doing what he pleases. And at some point in the story, he's told that he shouldn't be doing that because it is known that for him, for Pinkerton, it doesn't really mean anything, but for Chocho-san, maybe it means everything. And that difference in the perspective could change the life of Butterfly, which actually did. So even though he's suggested not to do that, the truth is that he proceeds. The truth is that Chocho-san proceeds as well. And things will get out of control. That's how it ends the first act. In the first act, we see the marriage, the rejection of the people of the town and family of Cho-Cho-san, and the duet of love. It is usually called as Viene la sera, if you take the first words that he says, or Bimba dagli occhi pieni di Malia, what comes later. And with that in mind, it is true that it seems that things will not be that bad. But when we start second act, we learn that it has been 3 years since Pinkerton left Japan, and it's been 3 years that Cho-Cho-san has been waiting for his return. Of course, after 3 years, people and everybody thinks that she has just been left, that she has been abandoned. Of course, there is bitterness in the heart of Cho-Cho-san, and that bitterness in the heart of Cho-Cho-san, she really doesn't allow it to be known by the rest of people. She stays by her word that Pinkerton will eventually return, and she defends her point of view till the very end. Of course, that breaks the heart of Suzuki. Suzuki is the lady, the maid, that helps Cho-Cho-san, and who also, of course, has her doubts in the return of Pinkerton. Madama Butterfly, Cho-Cho-san, gets very upset at Suzuki for questioning whether Pinkerton will or will not return. And because we are just arriving to the point where she is going to sing the Un bel di vedremo, before we get there, we need to go back to the point that Cho-Cho-san or Madama Butterfly, even though we said that it is written, or the character is to be, it is said to be around 15 years old, truth is that she is not. She's not in terms of voice. In terms of voice, the Madama Butterfly demands a very solid, a very mature voice, a lyrical soprano voice with lots of pasta. Better if it is closer to a spinto roll, because Madama Butterfly is known to be one of those operas that can hurt your voice. If you're a soprano, or if you have heard to other famous sopranos who have taken the endeavor of singing Cho-Cho-san too early in their careers, they usually also finish their careers very early because their voice ends up being damaged. The orchestration of Puccini is usually heavy, and the orchestration in Madama Butterfly is heavy. That is part of the reason why only a solid, mature singer should take the role. Still, there are many young sopranos who really want to go for it, but after several times or a couple of years of singing it often, their voice ends up being damaged, and if not the end of their career, it really impedes them to continue with the healthy sound of their voices. So I am saying that because it is important that, since I was saying that every soprano would like to sing Cho-Cho-san or sing this aria, you need to take into account that the complete opera is really, really, really heavy. The first act, which is the lightest for the soprano, starts singing around the middle of the act, and she continues singing. If not continuously, she continues on stage from her arrival to the point where they will be marrying, the actual marriage, the confrontation with Tio Bonzo, and then the duet Viene la sera, Bimba dagli occhi pieni di Malia, which means she has to sing a lot. And the duet with Pinkerton is also very long. If you take it from Viene la sera, it would all be around 10 minutes. 10 minutes singing, and the volume and the requirements of Puccini, it's really a lot. And then you go for a super heavy second act for Cho-Cho-san, which of course it is another proof, another way of a very demanding situation for Cho-Cho-san as well. And if you go for the third act, where she will wrap up the opera with singing the scene where she will actually kill herself, it really is a lot for a young voice. if you have a young voice and want to sing Puccini, maybe you go for for La Bohème, but you don't go for Madama Butterfly. So having said that, because it is very important to keep in mind that it is for a powerful voice, it starts, and we are start talking about the actual content of the opera, of the aria, and people know it because it starts saying un bel di vedremo. So what does un bel di vedremo means? The translation, I'm not going to talk exactly about the translation, because at some point I think it is irrelevant, because what really is relevant is that you think that un bel di vedremo means that my days now, my current days, my life now is sad. My days are gray. My days do not have happiness, but that those days of sadness, gray days, sad days, will end when that beautiful day arrives. Un bel di vedremo is that beautiful day arrives. That day that is different to the days that I am living now. And how is that day different to the days I am living now? I feel, and people know, that I have been, it feels like abandoned. It's been 3 years since Pinkerton left me. So those 3 years have been 3 years of sadness. But the day he returns, that fine, beautiful day he returns will be different. Because that fine day we will see levarsi un fil di fumo sull'estremo confin del mare. Because that beautiful day that is going to be different to these sad days, that day we will see a column of smoke rising up in the horizon. And that column of smoke rising up in the horizon will tell us that a ship has arrived. But what ship are we talking about? We are talking about the ship of Pinkerton. E poi la nave appare. But before we continue with the words, let's go for the difficulties. So when beginner singers look at the first note that they have to sing, and it is a U, which doesn't come that easy. Unfortunately, we couldn't have Katia joining because of technical problems, but we had these notes from our previous programs when she was joining us, sharing with us the difficulty of singing some notes. So the soprano has to go straight, and that could be a justification of why not a young soprano, a beginner soprano, should think of un bel di vedremo, because it has to be an exact note. So when you come from nothing and you have to start singing, un bel di vedremo, of course maybe the initial concern could be the note, but it is not only about the note, it's also about the emotion. Your heart, even if you want to appear strong to people outside, the truth is that inside of you, you are in ruins. The truth is that inside of you, there is sadness. But that day you will be happy. But that day you hasn't arrived. So you are daydreaming of the day that will arrive. And even though it means happiness, truth is that the day hasn't arrived. So it is a mixture of future happiness, but in the present you are sad. So it cannot be just a happy note in the un bel di vedremo, just like it has happened, he has arrived. No, he will arrive, but now he is not. And that tone of sadness in the voice of the soprano remains for virtually the complete aria. Levarsi farsi un fil di fuoco sull'estremo confin del mare e poi la nave appare, poi la nave bianca entra nel porto, Roma al suo saluto, vedi If you notice, there is way too much emotion, there is way too much demand, vocally speaking. There is way too much demand emotionally and vocally speaking for the soprano, because you come from the vedremo. One fine day when we will see that column of smoke rising in the horizon, which means that at the end the ship has arrived. Poi la nave bianca entra nel porto. Then that white ship will enter the harbor. Rombo al suo salutò. Then we will hear the cannon, because the cannon is a confirmation that the ship has arrived. Vedi, con passione, with lots of emotion, vedi è venuto, io non gli scendo incontro, io no. If you have noticed, a butterfly has made, or in the dynamics, she has come from average forte, oh, belli vedremo levarsi un fil di fuoco sull'estremo confin del mare, with small pauses, e poi la nave appare, then moving with a little faster, poi la nave bianca entra nel porto, then it requires a lot of stamina. Rombo al suo saluto, vedi è venuto, io non gli scendo incontro. Then there is a change, because the stamina, the power, the emotion had been growing until the vedi è venuto, but then it's going to have a diminuendo and dolcemente, and that's when we notice that she's falling back in control. È venuto, io non gli scendo incontro, io no, mi metto là sul ciglio del colle. And now, again, we have mentioned in previous programs that Puccini wanted to give to the vocal emission of Cho-Cho-san what he believed was a Japanese way of speaking. And he believed that these syllables, if not chopped, at least listened, mi metto là sul ciglio del colle. That's what he thinks is what the Japanese should sound. Mi metto là sul ciglio del colle e l'aspetto gran tempo e non mi pesa la lunga attesa. È uscito dalla folla cittadina, because after it had come growing in the emotion until the vedi è venuto and starting to diminish. Io non discendo incontro, Iano. Then, sort of speaking, io mi metto là sul ciglio del colle e aspetto gran tempo e non mi pesa la lunga attesa, which means truth is that when the cannon of the ship appears to confirm that you see, vedi, you see, he has come back in entire emotion, he has come back. But I am so afraid, dolcemente, io non gli scendo incontro, but I am afraid, and I do not live to his encounter. I do not go to his encounter. No, io no. Mi metto là sul ciglia del colle e aspetto gran tempo. Because instead of running there to find Pinkerton, I am going to stay in the brow of the hill, of the hillock, and I am going to wait there. I know that I'll have to wait for long, and I know that wait will not be tiring for me. That will be a long wait, but it will not be heavy on myself, because I have already waited for 3 years. So how much does it matter if I wait for a couple of hours more? That's what the expression "e aspetto gran tempo e non mi pesa," that's what the expression means, la lungatezza. And that is the part that is taken as almost spoken. Io mi metto là sul cilla del colle ed aspetto gran tempo e non mi pesa la lungatezza. So it comes from singing, now comes to speaking, and now comes the score says, animando un poco, says, è uscito dalla folla cittadina, un uomo un picciol punto s'avvia per la collina, chi sarà e come sarà giunto, che dirà, chi amerà Butterfly dalla lontana, io senza dar risposta me ne starò nascosta. In this part is where Madama Butterfly, Cho-Cho-san, goes back to singing, because she says, and there, from the crowd in the city, there is a small point, there is a small, there is the figure of a man that is coming from the crowd. And that man that is coming from the crowd starts climbing the hillock, the same hillock where I am waiting for him. And I ask myself, chi sarà, e come sarà giunto, che dirà, chi amerà Butterfly dalla lontana. Io senza dar risposta me ne starò nascosta. That is a part that we can consider as a sort of a transition after she has spoken, because she has now said, è uscito dalla folla cittadina, un uomo un picciolo al punto, s'avvia per la collina, chi sarà e come sarà giunto. But who is he? I am guessing who is him. And when he reaches the hillock, can I barely imagine, can I guess what he will say? He will say, Butterfly from a distance. Io senza dar risposta me ne starò nascosta. And even though he starts calling my name, I will not reply to his calling. I will still be in silence, because I want to see what he's going to do next. Try to keep in your minds that for at this point in time, Madama Butterfly has already waited for 3 years. And at some point, what she's telling us is, I am so afraid of running to his encounter. I am so afraid because I really don't know what I will do after 3 years of absence. How am I going to react? She's at some point afraid of her own reaction. That's what the words here mean. So she has been waiting for Pinkerton when he to call her Butterfly, because he say, chi amerà Butterfly dalla lontana, io senza la risposta me ne starò nascosta. And that's when she clarifies, un po' per celia e un po' per non morire al primo incontro, what I was just telling you. A little just to tease him when he reaches the hillock, but truth is that I don't want to die of emotion when I run into him. And that's when again, the melody of Butterfly starts rising again. Remember that she was speaking, Io senza la risposta me ne starò nascosta un po' per celia e un po' per non morire al primo incontro e in quanto in pena chiamerò piccina mogliettina o lezzo di verbena il nome che mi dava al suo venire. Because we have learned that she doesn't want to die of the emotion, but the truth is that if you notice the volume she uses, she's already dying of emotion. She can barely control herself. So, ed el in quanto in pena chiamerà. There is an effect very interesting here because Maestro Puccini requests ed el in quanto in pena chiamerà. In the ra, there is a calderone, which means that the soprano can take it for longer, but there is also the effect of increasing the volume and then decreasing for the following syllable, which is piccina. So it says chiamerà piccina mogliettina o lezzo di verbena. And those words are very, very touching the soul not only of Butterfly but of everybody's, because you have to keep in mind that this piccina mogliettina o lezzo di verbena, because she says when we run at our encounter, when he is returned, ed él in quanto in pena chiamerà, because she's imagining that he will, as he doesn't see Butterfly to run into his encounter, he will be troubled. And when he's troubled, he will keep calling me, piccina mogliettina o lezzo di verbena, dear baby wife of mine, dear little angel of blossom. Those were the names that he used to give me. What Butterfly is telling us is that in this daydreaming, in her imagination, when he reaches the hillock and when he sees she's not appearing, he will start calling the names couples get intimate or get to themselves. Those names are piccina mogliettina o lezzo di verbena. This expression has to be said with such love and emotion because in your mind you are recalling the way he used to call you. Piccina mogliettina o lezzo di verbena, il nome che mi dava al suo venire. And then she will tell Suzuki, tutto questo avverrà, te lo prometto, tienti la tua paura, io con sicura fede. So if you notice, even if you don't want to use the whole volume of your voice, truth is that Butterfly is undergoing not only lots of stress, emotionally speaking, but in lots of stress, vocally speaking, because notice, tutto questo verrà, te lo prometto, it is increasing, te lo prometto. Then remember that we have said also in other programs that sometimes the high note could be the problem, but it can be a lot more problematic because it tires your voice, the sequence of notes that come before. And the sequence of notes that come before are running from F to G continuously before reaching the A. And she continues speaking, and with lots of emotion. That is way too much stress on the voices of a soprano. that justifies why I was telling you that this has to be for a spinto soprano. Tutto questo verrà, te lo prometto, tienti la tua paura, che io con sicura fede. If you notice, tienti la tua paura, che io con sicura fede. It has been already 3 bars that the voice of the soprano has to keep not only notes that are not comfortable in the chest register, but are reaching her head register, but still needs to have enough chest support. This mixed voice has to be powerful enough, because otherwise the "Tienti la tua paura, che io con sicura fede" is not going to work. And because Maestro Puccini likes to make things difficult, when the soprano has to reach "Io con sicura fede," he has also added a rallentando crescendo, which means fede, increasing the volume, because, as I was telling you, he thinks it has not been tiring or difficult enough. So before reaching the A, he has requested to increase the volume. And then comes, for a small amount of time, l'aspetto, when the soprano, of course, no, well, I sound like a tenor doing it, but the soprano has to decide on how she's going to abord the final, because the aspetto, it's said to be fortissimo, and it is not only a high note coming from a tiring phrase, but it is a high note, fortissimo, and you are already tired. So you have to be very careful on how you want to go for it, because for some voices it works to make a small pause. Io con sicura fede, pause, l'aspetto. But for some other voices, that pause doesn't really work. So they go continue. Io con sicura fede, l'aspetto. And also, the final syllable, which is do, can be the same note as l'aspetto or l'aspetto, decreasing an octave to help the soprano a little. But the truth is that it is optional. And here you can find many mixes. There are sopranos who want to keep l'aspetto for as long as they can. Truth is that usually no more than 3 to 4 seconds, which is not really that long, but it is not that they are bad sopranos. It is the thing that you have it coming. Tienti la tua paura, che con sicura fede, l'aspetto. Also, when the soprano needs to decide on the final syllable, comes the advice or the comment that we have made in other programs. You have to consider whether or it is better to rapidnize it, l'aspetto, with a nice wrapping or a nice cease of the volume, do, instead of sounding like suffocated, l'aspetto, because that is not the way Chocho-san is expected to sing, and that is not natural to the style of Maestro Puccini. So also the advice. I think the longest note that I have heard sustained here is by Montserrat Caballé. Of course, Montserrat Caballé had a splendid breathing technique, so no surprise that she was that great in this area. But there are many, many, many great versions. Of course, for people who like Maria Callas, there is Callas' version. Of course, there is Renata Tebaldi, tremendously beautiful. There is Mirella Freni, there is Renata Scotto, there is Victoria de Los Angeles, Montserrat Caballé that I mentioned. There is a good number of sopranos who have been successful at singing, sopranos with a high quality for high notes, with enough stamina in their voices, because this beautiful aria which I stopped describing because of giving you the explanation of the notes, we were saying, Piccina molietina o lezzo di verbena, that's what the words he was calling me because he was my husband. I nomi che mi dava al suo venire, that's the way he used to call me. Tutto questo avverrà, te lo prometto, when she referred to Suzuki. All of this you will see. I swear, I promise that is going to happen. Tienti la tua paura. So keep your fears. Because me, I am sure that he will return. Me, Chocho-san, I am sure he will return. That's what the final phrase means. Ch'io con sicura fede l'aspetto. Because I am so sure that he will return that I will keep waiting for him.
You can follow our channel for the latest updates and more content. Opera We Love Singing, in just one word. Link in the description of the episode.